Hello, everyone. So thank you guys for having me here today. I was really nervous, but I think the crowd's going to be good today. We'll see. So today I'm going to talk about my story, how I got from the arts to STEM, and just my journey. So I was born in the beautiful island of the Dominican Republic, in the capital that's called Santo Domingo. Have you guys ever heard of Dominican Republic? Anyone? I was born to Dominican parents. Oh, I lied. Let me start over. Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is Dominican Republic, and it's in the Caribbean Sea. And this is what it looks like to people that are visiting from outside the beautiful island. Dominican Republic is a Spanish-speaking country. It was inhabited by the Taino Indians, and they call the land Quisqueya. And Quisqueya means mother of all lands. When Columbus discovered or landed in our land, he ended up calling it La Isla Española. And then later it got Latinized to Hispaniola. And the reason why I want to talk a little bit about my island and where I come from is because when I moved to the Bay Area, a lot of the Latinos from here were mainly from Central America or South America. And when I spoke Spanish, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, you're Latina?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I wanted to show that, there are a lot of us here that are Caribbean Latinos, and Latinos are just a huge spectrum of people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my parents. My mother was born in the Dominican Republic and to Dominican parents. And my grandfather was also Dominican. And he worked as a mechanic for the National Police at the time under one of our leaders, Trujillo. And the reason why I mention him is because my mom thinks that I got all my engineering from him because he was a mechanic. My mom was the second oldest of 5 children, and she ended up finishing high school, went to college for 1 semester, and then dropped out because she didn't have the financial resources. My father was born in the Dominican Republic to Dominican parents as well. He's the oldest of 6 children, and he finished high school, and he ended up studying French and English. And due to his languages, he was able to get hired at a logistics company in the Dominican Republic. And he rose to management fairly quickly. He became a supervisor within like 5 years, which was a big deal back then. By the way, if you guys have any questions during the duration of my presentation, feel free to ask. So this is my early childhood. I was a cute kid. So my father, the reason why I mentioned that he started out, he rose fast to management is because unfortunately he got into a horrible motorcycle accident when I was in my mama's belly. And he ended up being in a coma. And that was very difficult. And because my mom had some nursing background, she was able to rehabilitate him to, not to the state that he was before, but now he's able to walk and speak and do a lot of things. You would never know that he was in an accident. But because of that, it created a lot of marital problems. And he couldn't return to the job that he had before. So when he returned to that company, they demoted him from management. And that caused my mom and my father to have a lot of financial issues. And eventually they ended up separating. My mother was very frustrated at that time, and she saw that things weren't getting better for her, or for us. And she made a decision to leave the Dominican Republic because she knew my aunt used to travel all over the world, and she knew that there were opportunities in other countries, and there were other people in different countries that were offering education to kids. So my mom said, "You know what, I'm just gonna leave for a better life for my children." So I am the oldest of 7 children, so let me break it down. So for my mother and father, I have 1 sister, and that's Natasha, and you'll see her a lot in all my pictures. For my mother's side, I have 2 half brothers, which is the 2 brothers that I grew up with. And then for my father's side, I have 1 half brother and a twin half brother and sister. I don't really know them too much because I didn't grow up with them, but they're still dear to my heart. And I thought this was a cool picture. So when I was little, they used to call me bossy a lot. Lucky for me, I never thought it was a negative thing. I always liked being called bossy. And I was the valedictorian of my elementary school class. And I demanded that I wear red lipstick because I've seen all the stars giving speeches that wore red lipstick. And these are some funny pictures. So I moved to New York City. Before I talk about that, how I ended up in New York City, I want to talk a little bit about my mom, because of her, I am the woman I am today. My mom first moved to the island of St. Martin from the Dominican Republic, and she worked there for 2 years. She worked mornings and nights at a jewelry store and in a pharmacy, trying to collect as much money as she could so that she could move to the United States and then bring us over. She then acquired her visa and moved to the Bronx, New York in 1990. My aunt was already living in the Bronx, so there was, imagine, my aunt, my uncle, 3 kids, and my mom were all living in one apartment. And she, during her time in St. Martin, she only visited us 2 times. Once, shortly after she left to St. Martin, and then the second time, right before she left St. Martin to go to the United States, because she knew she wasn't going to be back for 5 years. So at that time, I was 2 years old when she left. So I didn't see my mom for 5 whole years. But she fought and worked really hard, and eventually attained visas and a permanent residency for us. And me and my sister were able to go to the United States in 1995. I was 9 years old. And this is a picture of me. This is the day that we got here. Mind you, this was 1995 in March in New York City. It was snowing outside. Nobody told me it was going to be cold. I'm from the Caribbean island. It's 90 degrees almost every day. So when I got to New York City and it was negative something degrees and it was snowing outside, I was like, this is a different world. I don't know where I am. So this is just my mother's travels, just a quick. So Dominican Republic is right there. And then St. Martin is an island nearby. And then from there she went, an island near Puerto Rico, and from there she went all straight to New York. And usually people that migrate from the Caribbean islands usually go to the East Coast because it's closer. So growing up in New York City. So when I got there, I had many difficulties, as you can imagine. First of all, I didn't know how to speak English. Second of all, it was cold as heck. I missed my family, my father, my friends, and so I had a lot of difficulty adapting to all these new people and all these different cultures that I'd never seen before. And especially the fact that we could not go outside often. Like in the Dominican Republic, you go to school, you go get your lunch, you come back, you go play outside all day until like 12 o'clock or whatever. And you go to the river, or you go to wherever, Here in in New York, things were different. We lived in a building such as that one. And I know it's very different from the West Coast, but in the East Coast, usually on a floor, there's about 5 different apartments. And families live in each apartment. So you're looking at, hundreds of people in a building. There's no backyards. You can't just go outside and chill, The crime rate was really high in the Bronx. And my mom was very scared that, if she left us outside unsupervised for any second, that something would happen to us. The people also in New York were very cold compared to the Dominican Republic and the Caribbean people. And I just really missed my dad. However, I was able to learn the language fairly fast. And I met this wonderful lady, her name is Mrs. Sanchez, in the 3rd grade. And she just looked at me and she just never gave up on me. And up until I was in college, I would visit her all the time. She was just such a special person. Mrs. Sanchez tutored me and would be like a math teacher. And she always said that I was just so advanced for my grade. I was so advanced. So she was like, you know what? There's the summer school students are coming in. Why don't you come in and you tutor them? And I was like, what? And she was like, I'll pay you $6 an hour. So that was my first job. I was like, why? You know what I could buy with $6? So I would get like potato chips every day. So that was my first job, very well paid. And from then on, I attended a specialized middle school that was specializing in marine biology. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a marine biologist, this is what I wanna be. And then I realized I can't swim, so that doesn't really work. So then I started going to an art class, and I was really good at art. I was just such a good art student, and I started drawing all the time. So I continued to pursue the arts. In high school, there was a special class called medical illustration that you had to be like one of the top scoring students or whatever to be in the class, or high percentile student. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be medical illustration, and I was just so fascinated by the human body and by the power of it and what it could do. And in medical illustration, we would draw things like the heart, you know, like, you know what doctors use? They use books that are drawn by medical illustrators. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be a medical illustrator. But my other teachers also noticed I was very good at physics and math. And when I was in high school, whenever somebody would ask me, what's your favorite subject? I was like, physics. It's my favorite subject. It was just so much fun for me. But I never thought of that as a career. Never. It never occurred to me. So then junior year, a recruiter from RIT, which is the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York, visited our class, and he was like, you know, we have engineering programs, and you can become an engineer, and through that program, you go to co-ops, so that means you get paid internships. And I was like, wow, so I can work while I'm going to school, this is great. And you know, that was the first time that I ever looked at engineering as a possibility. Nobody in my family is an engineer, nobody has a bachelor's degree. My mom never put that in her brain that, you know, this is something that we could be. I never knew it was a possibility for me. So that summer, I saw a program that they had, like, it was like a science fair program, where a lot of people from different companies would come in and volunteer and, you know, tell the students, work on these different activities, and they had robotics activities and things like that. So I went, and I did really well on the robotics activities. And one of the guys, he goes, you know, maybe you could be an engineer. And I'm like, you know, maybe I could be an engineer. And that's when I realized that probably maybe this could be my calling. And I didn't want to be a starving artist. And by the way, the high school that I attended was the High School of Art and Design of Manhattan. And I was also the captain of my softball team, the captain of my volleyball team when I was in school. So I've always been really involved. Oh, it's not clicking. Oh, never mind. So I thought maybe I could be an artist and I could be an engineer or a scientist. So usually people tell you, you know, you're either your left brain is dominant or your right brain is dominant or whatever. And the left brain is usually, you know, the scientists and the mathematicians, and then your right brain is usually creativity. I was very creative, but I was really good at math and sciences. And I was like, you know, with engineering, what is an engineer? What do engineers do? Engineers create, they imagine, they come up with things that have never existed before. They're pioneers sometimes. And that's when I realized that I could be an artist and be somebody that was invested in science and math through engineering. Engineers are originators and problem solvers. That was everything that I've always wanted to be. I love this picture, so cool. So my college years, that's my Brady Bunch family. My undergrad year, so I did get accepted to the Rochester Institute of Technology. And the reason why I decided to go there is because they offered me the most money. So, you know, I'm like, you know, I don't have to pick college, great. So I ended up going to electrical mechanical engineering technology because it was a very hands-on program. While I went to Rochester, which you can see, New York City is down that little tiny bit of land there, and then Rochester, New York is all the way up by the Niagara Falls. Just think about that, and I'm gonna get back to that. So my family moved to New Jersey because things were getting really bad in the Bronx, New York. unfortunately, the crime is getting higher, and people are getting stabbed and killed and all kinds of things in our block area. So my mom was like, you know what, enough is enough. So she moved our family to a safer neighborhood in New Jersey. When I got to my undergrad, I didn't know anyone or anything, so I decided to join the chapter. And through them, I found a family. And I also joined a Latina sorority called SLU, Sigma Lambda Upsilon, las Señoritas Latinas Unidas. And through them, I was able to find a support system, just a group of women that believed in me. And I think I seeked that a lot because I was the only woman in most of my classes. I was also the only minority sometimes in most of my classes. And I just felt so odd. I felt so different. And I just wanted someone to understand me or someone to support me in some way. And I was able to attain that through, what did I do? I'm not good at this. Okay. So, this is how Rochester looked to me. This is Rochester in the summer. Beautiful, sunny, gorgeous. And this is Rochester, fall, winter, and spring. Imagine walking to class at 8 a.m. through all that snow. It's horrible. It's terrible. That's the part they left out of the brochure. Never showed up. So let's talk about my internships. I think this is very important for you students. My first internship I did, I was a mechanical engineering intern at a company called Angiotech in Syracuse, New York. And they're a company that they specialize in surgical needles and devices that medics use. So I thought that was great. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in the medical field, whatever. So I get there, and one of the tests I had to do to test the sharpness of one of our needles is literally puncture pig skin and see what the sharpness was. So this would be everything. And I hated it. It was the most disgusting thing I ever done in my life. I'm like, I hate mechanical engineering. It sucks. This is the worst thing in the world. Then I was like, okay, you know what? That was a little overreacting. Maybe this job was just horrible. So I decided to do a different co-op. And by the way, these are all paid, thank God. So I decided to do another co-op, mechanical manufacturing engineer co-op. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. I can do, all these things. And it was at a company called Liberty Pumps in Rochester, New York. And Liberty Pumps, they're like sump pumps or like grinder pumps. So whenever there's waste, let's say you have sewage and there's waste, it goes through the pumps and it like tears it up and filters things out and things like that. I loved that job. It was very hands-on. I was able to learn about Six Sigma and lean manufacturing, and I just loved it. And then my last co-op, I heard about a student work abroad program that was being offered at the school. And I decided to be the first pilot for it. I thought that was a great idea. So I ended up interning in Madrid, Spain for 4 months. And that was an amazing experience. I loved it. It was very difficult in that, although I knew the language, I thought things were going to be easy. But I knew the language and I got there. And then I didn't know the dialect. And people would look at me weird. And they were like, cocina. And I'm like, what is that? What is cocina? Which is funny because when I got back home, I had the thing, and my mom was like, no, en esta casa se dice cocina. Like, in this house, you say it this way. I was like, all right, Mom. So that was a great experience. But something happened in 2009. I don't know if you guys know. The recession happened. So when I was in Madrid, I would see like all of these statuses on Facebook from my friends, like, oh, I can't find a job, or I just got into grad school and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even think about that part of my life. I had no idea that there was a next step. Like, I just didn't think of it. I was like, well, I was so caught up in Madrid that I didn't realize that there was this whole, there was this whole other side of life that I had to worry about. So that's when I was like, okay, I have two options. I can either A, go home to my mama's house and look for a job and be a bum, because that's what I was gonna be. Or B, I can go to grad school. There was just one little problem with that. That grad school was 3 weeks away and I was in Madrid. And the applications were due 2 weeks before. So I was like, okay, how am I gonna get myself into grad school? So the minute I arrived in the United States, I, Facebooked someone. I was like, are you going to Rochester? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, can you give me a ride? I'm like, yeah. So I got there, and the next day I went to the registrar office, and I was like, how can I get into this program? And she was like, you can't, because you need 2 recommendations letters, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, who is the person running the program? And she's like, so-and-so. And I'm like, ooh, he was my professor. So I ended up going, I suited up the day after. I went in with my resume and with a stern face, and I'm like, these are the reasons why you need to put me into this program. And first of all, he was shocked. He was like, how dare you, the audacity. And I'm like, you don't understand, like, I need to get into grad school. This is like my life will end if I don't get into grad school. And I guess I have so much conviction, and I just had so much determination that he couldn't turn me away. And he was like, this is what I can do for you. He's like, the first semester that you're there, I'm gonna put you on probation. He's like, if you get anything under a 3.2, you're gonna be out of the program, effective immediately. And I was like, that's nothing, I got this. So lucky for me, I had a 4.0. So I ended up going into grad school 2 weeks after arriving in Spain. I don't know what came over me, I really am not that bold, I don't think. So when I graduated from grad school, I ended up moving to California. And the way that happened was I was dating this young man here at the time. And he got a job at Intel in California. I had a job offer at Intel in Arizona, California. So I decided to move to California with him. And I said to him, if things don't work out within a year, I'm leaving. And I'm just gonna go back home. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank God things worked out. And I moved out here, and immediately I became involved with the SHPE chapter, the Silicon Valley chapter. And through them, I found a lot of mentors that were willing to talk to me on how to get prepared for an interview, you guys know because you attended my interview thing, yeah. How to get prepared for an interview, how to write up my resume, what things I needed to do to get a job. And I was able to get a job within 6 to 8 weeks from the time that I arrived here, which was very good. So I ended up working for Northrop Grumman in the Missile Launch Tube project, which I can't talk too much about it, but these are launch tubes that go into submarines, which get deployed. And shortly there, I became the continuous improvement lead for that company, and it was a really great experience. Unfortunately, though, I didn't like the culture. It just didn't resonate with me. Everybody was really, they had an older mentality, and they weren't receptive to new ideas. And I knew that that's not the company that I wanted to work for. I knew that that's not the kind of environment I wanted to grow in. So when Intel called me and decided to offer me a position in California, I didn't even hesitate. I was like, yeah, sign me up, I'm in there. And by the way, when we did our road trip here, this is this picture. On a road trip from New York to here, we hit a tornado. I have an animation. And it was the scariest thing I've ever been through in my life. Like, there were like balls of hail falling into our car. It was horrible. But it was a great experience. I was able to take pictures and stuff. And I got married last year, so that was a good thing. So let's talk about paying it forward. So that was my whole story. One thing that I feel very compelled to do is paying it forward. I feel that, like Anna said, sometimes we don't give back. We think that we can't touch the lives of a lot of people. And the truth is that if somebody had touched my life early enough, perhaps I could have been in a different path. If somebody would have told me about STEM opportunities, perhaps I could be a different person living in a different world, And I feel like there's a lot of people in our community that don't know that these opportunities exist. And it's our duty, or my duty, to go back and tell them they do. So because of that, like I said, I joined the SHPE chapter, and I've been the president of our Silicon Valley professional chapter for 2.5 years now. I'm also volunteering at the Intel Latino Network, which is our employee resource group. I am the public relations chair. I helped found an organization, the Amazon as well, Listas, and it's letting us in STEM to achieve success. And this is our first year, so I think and we had our conference, our first conference here in Cañada. I also volunteer often at Intel. Our organization is called the Business of Reading, and we go and we read to impoverished schools, so to the kids. And I'm usually the only Spanish-speaking person that goes, so I read to Spanish-speaking classes. And most recently, I've been volunteering for the Latinas in STEM Foundation. Here, they're going to have a conference on November 8th in Hayward. And I'm their facilitator coordinator. And we have two of the founders back here, Jazz and Diana. They're doing amazing work in our communities all across America. So let's get into Intel a little bit. So there's a lot of things that I can't talk about because of our IP. But I can talk about Intel's general process. And I think even when I applied to Intel, I wasn't aware of how they develop a chip. It's a very unique process. So let me put a video. Aaron, where are you? Okay, it's gonna work, hold on. Oh, I got it. We gotta get through the commercial. Oh, Aaron. Alt tab. You do it. I broke it. I knew it. Oh, no, that's me. Sorry, that's my background, guys. I have to look at something happy every day. What? Okay, good. You fixed it. All right, so pay attention. This is important. Yeah. So that's sand. See that all the way at the top? That's the part that I work on. That's called a mask. And I'm going to go a little bit into it. That's called a wafer. That's fancy light. These are different kinds of layers. One of the layers called photoresist. guys just saw, just in case you have any questions. So sand, something I didn't even know about, that with about 25% of silicon after oxygen, sand or silicon is the second most common element in the Earth's crust. That's what you guys saw at the beginning, the little sand. And that's how we get silicon. Silicon is a starting material for computer chips. It's a semiconductor, and that's why we call it the semiconductor industry. And that means that it can readily turn into an excellent conductor, insulator of electricity. And then when you guys saw that part that it was melting, that's melted silicon. And then it goes, then these slides, that part, and I'll show you. It's called ingot slicing. And the ingot, the ingot slicing is when the ingot's cut into individual discs, and that's what I showed you that is called wafer. That's a wafer. And this is the part that I work on. It's called the mask. So that's the very top part. So we develop our mask. Intel is the only company that has a mask manufacturing here in the United States. We don't outsource our masks.
IBM doesn't either. Leave IBM. At least they used to make their own mask.
I don't think that's true anymore. But this is what I think I know. And so it is, compared to like Samsung, Intel is one of the only ones that manufactures their masks here in the United States. For sure. You threw me off. I can't. So basically they take, from our mask is one of the very first steps of making the chips. And from there, it goes through, the light goes through a lens, and then it gets etched. A mask is almost like a huge chip pattern. And then that gets, light gets thrown through that, and it goes through a lens, and then we make different patterns. And that's how we make chips, on a wafer. And that's all I think I can say. So what do I do at Intel specifically? I'm an industrial engineer, and we take care of process flows and making sure that we do cost analysis, things that are gonna determine the most efficient sequence of operations and workflow at our factory. I also establish a lot of methods for maximum utilization for personnel, so we do labor models. I work alongside people like safety, microcontamination, so our fab is a clean room fab. That means that it's, when you go in there, you have to go in a bunny suit. So I work, microcontamination is a huge issue when making a chip, because if any particles come in contact with that chip, then it's no longer usable. And I also work with, obviously, engineering and production team, and I do a lot of different efficiency projects just to support our production. So, nuggets of advice, and I know that I talk really fast, but whatever. So, don't let your past dictate your future. As you guys saw, my past is I do have a lot of downturns, but I think through my mother's strength and through perseverance, I was able to get to the point where I am now, and bossiness. So if you do have something in your past that you feel like is weighing you down, that it's preventing you from moving forward, and remember that your past doesn't always dictate your future. You dictate your future. Nobody can tell you what you're gonna be. You can only do that. And always follow your heart. I know that was important for me for when I moved to California. At first I was like, the smart thing would be to take the job in Arizona. But I knew that it was easier to find a job than also find a husband. So I was like, should have said that. But that's a follow your heart thing. It doesn't always work out for the best, but when you know you're following your heart, you don't regret the decisions you make. Don't be afraid to get involved. I think because of my involvement in SHPE, believe it or not, when I was in college, I gave a speech for SHPE my very first freshman year. I was like the secretary or something, and I started crying. I walked on stage and I saw everybody, and I started crying. Like, I could not finish one sentence. So I was like, you know what, this has to change. And I took public speaking classes. I'm not better now, but so I'm not crying. But it was through social clubs and organizations that I found also my passion. And I also found that it's good to give back. There are so many resources available for you out there. Like internships, grants, scholarships, take advantage of those. One thing that I didn't do was that I was too stubborn to apply to a lot of things. I was like, oh, you gotta write an essay, and I don't wanna write an essay, you know. But write the essay, like it's absolutely worth it when you have debt after you graduate. And last but not least, don't sell yourself short. And I know that I'm guilty of this. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, you've done all these great things. And I'm like, no, I'm not that great. But we all are. We all have a specific skill. We all have something inside of us that makes us different. So don't sell yourself short. And last but not least, contact me. I just got a new Twitter, so don't expect me to tweet back because I'm not that good. But you can contact me on LinkedIn, and I'll befriend you. Does anybody have any questions? Comments, concerns? Okay, that's it.
So actually, I have one question. Or open it up to the audience. How would you describe your basic typical day at Intel now? Like what do you do, or probably a lot of meetings?
Yes, a lot of meetings. I walk in, I get coffee. No, there's a lot of, at my job, the reason why sometimes I can't describe what I do is because it's different every single day. Like today we walked in and we realized that we had like these plastic T-bars, we call them, and they were shedding and causing a microcontamination problem. I had to, today, all day, I had to figure out a material that we could switch all those T's. Mind you, we have 3,000 T's in our whole fab. And I have to switch them out without disrupting production. How I'm gonna do that? I don't know yet. But you know, it's things like that, like it's almost like smoking mirrors. So every day I walk into my job, it's a new issue, it's a new problem, and I'm lucky to be hired to solve them. So sometimes when people ask me what I do, I have to give a very generalized statement of what I do, but what I do is just so much more than that. It's dealing with people and dealing with real problems that happen in production.
Are you typically on the production floor, and does that involve maybe a special outfit?
Oh yeah. So I look fabulous today. But this is not what I look like. So because I work in a clean room, I can't wear makeup. I can't wear mascara. I can't wear anything on my face. I could wear hair product, thank God. So you usually have a net. There's a bunny mask. Oh my God, I wish I would have brought my bunny suit thing. There's a bunny mask. There's a suit that says Julissa Ramirez on it. There's booties that come with it. 2 different kinds of gloves that we put on. So I have to suit up and suit out every so often I go into the clean room. So that's my special little outfit that I wear. Yeah.
So you talked about how the culture at Northrop
Mhm.
versus why is it so?
That's a great question. So, first of all, Northrop Grumman's culture and Intel's culture is like night and day. So when I got to Intel, the week of, they had like a festival for all the employees. Where they had like food trucks and like a fair, and I was like, what is this? They would give us free food over there. So just the fact that Intel's so involved in the community, Intel's very, very focused on uplifting our community. And they spend so much money. So for every single hour that I volunteer at our organization, Intel donates $10 to the organization. That's huge to me. That means that they believe in the work that all of the employees are doing, and they believe in helping out the community and giving back. And that's like the biggest part for me. And the people are a lot younger and very nice. And I just feel like the atmosphere is very dynamic, it's very like ready to work. We're always having challenges, we're always in meetings trying to discuss things, and people respect you a lot more, although I look very young. Sometimes I have to talk to people that are a lot older than me, and sometimes that is a challenge within itself. So when you guys get hired to a new company, don't be discouraged when, you know, older folks try to make you feel a certain way. You're just as smart sometimes and just as valuable. And you're there for a reason. You just have to, you know, prove it to them.
Right.
2 questions. First question is, you transferred to RIT
No, I went straight from high school.
Okay, the second question is, would you have wanted to go to a community college before you started at a 4 year?
See, for me personally, I think we're going straight to college. To RIT was better than going to a community college from my experience. But for my sister, my little sister, she's now a kindergarten teacher. And she found that going through the community college program and then going to a 4-year was very beneficial to her. She was able to get her associates, get some work, and then go and get her 4-year degree. So I guess it depends on your personal, but I don't want to be in school for that long. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much, guys, for having me here today. I really, really, really appreciate it.